Welcome to installment number 3.
It's Curves Week.
Don't leave! We're going to get you there. So step by step, one thing at a time, you are going to master curves.
Our goal is for you to be successful and actually enjoy the process. So we have clear instructions, and as always, read everything carefully. But most of all, watch this video first. We're going to give you a little tutorial in a moment and actually sew a curve that you can watch our process and see how, yeah, you've got this.
You do want to follow instructions. We're getting in the Facebook group a lot of, well, do I really need to, or I decided not to do such and such, and why didn't my pieces come out right? We have painstakingly written these instructions for you to be successful. And if you overlook certain things or you make a choice not to do certain things, it may create problems for you down the road. So follow the instructions.
Just follow the instructions. Nothing is super complicated. It's meant to be clear.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the printing?
Sure. So the first thing, whenever you're dealing with templates, and you had those kind of triangular templates last week, this week with the curves, you also have templates. So it was important to us to make sure that you could print these out and work with them successfully. So on the sheet, last week you had a little 1-inch square to make sure that you printed it at actual size. We've made it even more clear this week that there's a 5-inch ruler on the bottom, and if you take your ruler and measure that and it's 5 inches in your printout, you're good to go. That's all you need. That means everything's accurate. If you measure it and it's 5 1/4 or 4 3/4, that means there's a setting that's off on your printer.
Or even 4 7/8.
Yeah, it should be 5 inches.
Yeah.
And the printer setting usually will say actual size or 100%. That's always what you want. You never want it checked to say scale or fit to page. So basically, it should be straightforward. Printers are all different. Sometimes there's a little button when you go to print on the bottom that says print settings or setup. If you have a problem, try clicking there and seeing. It's usually a very simple thing to resolve, but that's an important step.
Also, if you are having problems with your printer, your local library is often a really good source for technical help, and they may have printers you can use as well if you are getting confused. We've seen some people in the Facebook group talk about how they're getting different results printing on their own computer than they are on the printer at the library, for example. So we cannot advise you on how to fix your problem, since there are hundreds of printers and devices that you might be have interaction. So that is something you're going to have to get help with on your own, or see if you can get somebody locally to assist you, or go to a library or something.
But in most cases, it won't be an issue. It should
Yeah.
just print very easily at actual size.
So we also want to talk about some other tips for your templates. We've gotten some requests to give you tips for people who are using templates for the first time. And one of those is to use, when you have, I guess the first thing to say is, when we say label your templates, there's many reasons that we want you to label your templates. One, so you know what the right side is, because in some cases it will make a difference. And then in some instances, you'll need to flip the template. So you're going to want to keep track of which side you've used. So we use a Sharpie for ours. We also, in this particular unit, are asking you to make registration marks on the curve templates and the curve you'll be sewing into. We have those registration marks on the template, and we ask you to transfer them to your plastic or cardboard or whatever templates you're using a Sharpie. So some of you have asked about using heavier plastic or whatever. Whatever is going to work for you works, but you want to make sure that you have those registration points. Some people have talked about they're not as steady, cutting against a template and they trim it. We often use our trimming ruler along straight edges, but for the curved edges, this time it's not going to work. So where there's a straight edge, you can put a no-slip ruler on top of it, but you're going to have to just carefully, slowly cut the curves, but there aren't a ton of them. So if you're new to working with templates, one way to prevent them from slipping around is to put a loop of tape on the back side or the side that's going against the fabric, because you're going to be flipping at some point. So you'll move that loop of tape, but that is one way to help your templates stay, prevent them from moving around too much. The other thing you'll want to do is put that Sharpie on the edge so you can see that cutting edge a little bit more easily. That's easier on darker fabrics, but just get yourself some good light and take your time. Those are the best tips we have. Also, Bill is going to give you a step-by-step tutorial here of exactly how you're going to inset those circles. It's worth saying at this point, because we're getting some comments in the Facebook page that some of you are thrown by the fact that we're having you go back and take units that you pieced or you cut in previous installments and then do something with them. It would appear that maybe you were thinking that you were done with them, and that's why you wanted the finished trim sizes and such. So we didn't want it to be predictable.
It's a mystery.
Yeah, so don't be surprised if we say, hey, remember that unit that you cut in installment 1? Go find that, because we have further plans for it. So just be patient that we're giving you all the information you need for this particular stage, and that if you follow the instructions and you read the instructions and you follow them carefully, you will be successful. So step by step, we're getting there. So Bill is going to move over to the sewing machine and show you how to piece a curve very easily and accurately.
And right before I go, we do want to give you a quick glimpse of, this isn't all of the blocks and the units, but a sampling of what we did in installment 2. So you can see our palette. And we showed you installment 1 last time, but you get a sense that you have a group 1 and a group 2. They're clearly different. We've loved seeing your palettes come together. There's some really beautiful color stories, and these are going to be really different, which is great.
You may notice some of them are missing, and that's because they were used in installment number 3.
So you'll see. So shall we go to the sewing machine?
Let's sew.
Okay, welcome to the sewing table. I'd like you to take a look at these 2 sample blocks or units that I've already sewn. One is insetting a semicircle into a pieced block. The other is just insetting a semicircle into this rectangle. So those are finished. It's an E1 and a D2 block. I'm going to set those aside and show you how we got here. In the installment, it will have you sew 2 strips together, and with the smaller template, template 2, you'll be placing that on here and cutting out a semicircle. And you notice that there were the little registration marks on the template. I've gone across onto the fabric and chalked them onto this unit, so we know exactly where those registration marks are. With the larger template, template 3, I've cut out a semicircle and I've transferred those registration marks. So what we're going to do is put this piece in here. And I'll tell you right now, occasionally people are like, this is so confusing, or how am I going to do this? You are going to do this by just watching and taking your time. So the step is illustrated clearly, but I think it helps to actually see the video as well. So take a look at this. You're going to start by lining up those 2 center marks. So you're turning this upside down so the right sides are facing, and you can peek under, and basically that center seam is lining up right at the edge. And what I'm doing is putting my pin right through the center, and I slide my pin in exactly 1/4 of an inch from the edge because that's where the seam is going to go. And now this is where things distort and look strange. If you look at on the diagram, it's going to say take this point that's labeled 2 on the illustration, and you're going to bend it back and line it up like this. Look at this. Doesn't this look so strange? You're going to line it up with the second point of the semicircle. And you can begin to see what's happening. You can see that those curves are trying to want to meet. And in the instructions, it says pin this first, that second, third is this one. Now watch. I'm taking it around. And you're like, wow, this looks like a mess. It all works. I pin that. So I have 3 pins. And now I have 2 more registration marks. And I'm going to match these right here. And I'm going to pin them. And I'm going to find my final registration marks and pin those. And what we have now, if you look at this, you pull that seam out, curves naturally bend and they flex. And so what I have is, if I give it just a little stretch, these curves actually meet up. It kind of messes with your mind a bit if you've never done this before. What we're going to do is go around 1/4 of an inch in and sew the semicircle. The most important thing at this point is making sure that your semicircle is flat on your table. If you sew it upside down, it will not work. You will sew lots of tucks into your piece. So make sure it's in this order. And what I'm going to do is just kind of get this all lined up, and I'm going to slide this in, and I'm going to just move the camera right now to get a slightly closer view. So if you look, I'm using a 1/4 inch foot. You don't have to use a 1/4 inch foot. If you know your 1/4 inch, that's fine. And I'm going to follow the curve, slightly pressing this out. So I'm keeping my edges together, and I'm going to go very slowly. There's no hurry here. I'm going to pull my pins out just when I come to them because I don't want to break a needle. And if you look at this, it's sewing a nice curve here, staying 1/4 of an inch in. I put my needle down if that helps to pull out the pin. And then as I go along, I have to kind of adjust this upper piece every now and then and smooth it out. So you kind of ease it in there and keep sewing. See, people might get worried that there are kind of pleats here. As long as they're on the other side of the seam, they don't get sewn in. It's absolutely fine. So So I'm going to go around slowly, easing this as I go. Okay, we're halfway there. We're halfway there. Now, once again, as I go along, you just kind of have to open this up now and then. And the semicircle on the bottom wants to stay in place. It wants to lie flat. Let it lie flat. And just kind of work with that top piece to get it to follow the curve. And really sew slowly. It's not a race. We're almost there. You see I'm taking out each pin as I go along. And then, oh, I ran out of bobbin. Doesn't that happen to everyone? It happens to us too. We sometimes run out of bobbin in the middle of something. So I've gone back just a little bit. I've re-threaded the machine. I had to place that pin back in, but now I'm back on track. And I can continue that seam. Oops, I decided to leave that part in just to show you that this happens to us too. I'm going around, and yay, I didn't run out of bobbin this time. So here's the nice block with the semicircle. So the last step here is to make little slits from the edge halfway in to the seam allowance. And I'm using little scissors. If you have them, they can be a little easier to control. You don't want to accidentally cut all the way. If you cut into the seam, you obviously have a problem. So these are just tiny little snips every 1.5 inches or so. And that helps you when you press these. Here I am at the ironing board with a nice hot iron. And the important thing here is you don't want to really manhandle and push things. We always literally press in from the top. So if I'm doing my seams open, I kind of hover over and press gently down. I rotate the fabric and I go around. If it helps to finger press open first, that's fine. If you go to the side, just gently press to the side. Don't push the whole fabric over. But I'm making my way around here. And our iron has a nice little beak, which makes it a little easier to get in. But again, if you need finger press first, that's fine. And those little slits we did, so here's a case where there, I'm just finger pressing a little bit, going in and just pressing down rather than pushing to the side. So in the end, you have a really nice crisp block with this semicircle. And I suggest that you try a sample block or two if you're new to this with some scrap fabric, and you'll get the hang of it amazingly quickly, I think. And Weeks and I will be cheering you on. We can't wait to see your installment 3 blocks as they appear on the Facebook page, and we'll see you next week with more.